Boo, you suck. Boo.
I'm getting.
The October developer update for New World is here, and well, 1, it's early, and 2, it's in a different format, and 3, there's no actual roadmap. That sounds like.
Hey guys, Parfax here, and today we are bringing you a video on a spot where you can make a ton of coins. All right, let's get started. Of coins. And what we're doing here today is we're going to be farming up armadillo meat. This is going for right around All right, so you can run basically back and forth, and the big thing here is once you get into rhythm, you'll be able to see them spawn. You see right there, they're just starting to spawn. You just pop them as soon as they spawn up. You're going to see right there, we're going to kill them. And it makes it really easy to get it down. You don't have to be too incredibly fast here. Just as soon as they spawn up, hit them, because it'll tell you exactly where they're at, and you can go ahead and skin them. This is going to net you about 30 to 40 of these prime armadillo meats per one of your... All right, so we went ahead.
Hi everybody, welcome to the October Dev Update. We're super excited. We have a lot to share with you today. We're going to talk about some upcoming events, going to give you an update on the roadmap, and we have two very special guests here today. I'm sure you're all aware of the New World to Go podcast. We have Bordy and Redbird from Studio Loot here, and they're going to host the show for us. So welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us here, man. This is absolutely incredible to be here. We're super pumped to be here. It's a little surreal to be sitting here in this seat, something we've talked about for a very long time. And yeah, man, we're just super excited, so thank you.
Many a Monday mornings I'd come to work and just kind of quote some things that you talked about on the show, especially to our combat guy, so he might be angry at you when he gets here. I love how deep you guys break down the game, and that we take that and it tells us what the players are saying and how everyone's feeling about it, and we try to use that to guide us back in the game. And I know a lot of people have asked, get some content creators in there to ask some hard questions. So gloves are off. When this thing gets going today, have fun. Dig in. Just like it's just like your podcast.
Sounds good.
Look forward to instigating some sort of fist fight here on set today. So it's gonna be great.
Awesome. Well, with that, let's just dive right in.
All right, so I think we have an update to the roadmap coming up. So I think we're going to talk about that a little bit. Can we give predictions as to what's coming up on the roadmap before you jump in, or is that something we don't want to do?
You can absolutely do that, but first let me just address one topic real quickly, which is leaderboards. On the current roadmap that's announced, leaderboards were promised, and we missed that date. I just want to let everyone know we are working on leaderboards. It was a combination of some priority shifts and some problems we ran into creating it. It's still being actively worked on, and when it's ready, we're going to release it.
Awesome. I think leaderboards are going to be an amazing addition to the game for sure.
Cool.
All right, now your guesses.
Yeah, let's
see.
All right, Ren, what do you got?
I mean, I harp about this a lot. Raids is one of the things that I'm hoping to hear a little, just a tiny bit about today. Is in-game raid.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely are working on it. So let me first give a high level of where we are in our roadmap process. We're in the middle of what we call long-term planning on the team. This is where we take a look at the next 9 to 12 months and plan things. So what I can give you with high confidence, first off, is December. We're going to have the Winter Convergence Festival, another round of that, and we're going to have a new expedition come out that is pretty freaking cool. We're combining the best parts of Amrine and Starstone into one expedition that's going to be a new mutation in the rotation.
It's going to be a super cool mashup. It's going to be really cool.
And it's not going to be a temporary thing. It's going to be live.
We have a name for the
Not yet.
Frankenstein mutation that's going on?
No, but now I'm thinking Starmine.
Starmine.
Maybe, I don't know.
Hashtag.
Yeah. We're brainstorming,
Nope,
so
it's
nothing's
too
off
late.
the table.
You know what?
but
I've
maybe
fallen
off
into
the table.
Dave Verfaillie land, which is bad naming.
We're brainstorming,
Nope,
so
it's
nothing's
too
off
late.
the
It's got
table.
that.
You know what?
but
I've
maybe
fallen
off
into
the
Dave
table.
Verfaillie land, which is bad naming.
Yeah.
And another thing we're going to have is an updated roadmap. So right now we're going to give you an update. We're going to talk about things that we're working on. And I'm going to circle back to your question now, which is the raid. We are for sure working on that cool sandworm into a raid for players, an endgame raid. Very excited
Yeah,
about
it's going to be very difficult. So that is going to show up on the public test realm at some point, and we'll need people to test the heck out of that
I'll be there.
because we need it to be near impossible. And that's the plan. Oh, and speaking of the sandworm, your followers and your Twitch chat was wondering if the sandworm damages you at all out in the open world if you happen to come upon it. Most of the time, no. But there are 2 instances where, yes, the sandworm will damage you, and it's if you happen to be unlucky enough to be standing right over its mouth when it breaches the ground.
Oh my gosh, this is real.
So chat didn't lie.
So it might be a first.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can't fight back, sorry.
Yeah,
but,
not yet.
yeah.
Take one for the team, and eventually
Exactly.
you'll be able to punch them back.
And our
Exactly.
anger and aggression up until the raid comes up.
Exactly. Hold on to that rage.
Yeah.
So my I don't know if this is so much of a guess as it is kind of a wish list item for me is territory control and some adjustments coming to that system. Is there anything like that coming up on the roadmap?
We're constantly adjusting territory control. There are some changes slated for the next few by March for sure coming in for that. you have any specifics on that, Katie?
So we are adjusting some of the money that's going around. Those adjustments have already been announced and are in the recent update by the time that this goes live. But then there's even more that we're doing and hunting down, like how you can influence how you assert your influence in the open world, and how you can deck for the wars, and how many folks need to be slotted from your company. These are all things that we're chasing down. But as Scott said, it's not something for right now. It's something that we are planning and actively working on.
And beyond that, there's some bigger changes we want to make we're not ready to talk about yet.
All right.
Awesome.
We got to keep some secrets, guys. Come on.
on now.
How are we supposed to surprise and
I'm about
delight
to
if there's no
sit around the office
surprises?
I'm going to say I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to go look at desks.
Okay.
2 years ago, you might have found something.
Yeah.
Not work from home, I won't
Yeah.
good luck. A couple other things we're working on that I think are pretty cool. We're working on something we call Springtime Bloom event, which is our first spring event. So we're excited about that. This is a big one for the team. Cross-server OPR.
Ooh, yeah.
It's not just a
Now
big
we're
one for the
talking.
team. That's a
That's it.
huge one for the community.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that we have been, putting in the framework and what we need to get that in place. And Outpost Rush, there's a lot of talk about what we should have be the first mode that we can manage. And I was harping on Outpost Rush being it because I was in a lower pop server for quite some time, and it took a while for those queues to pop. So now we don't really have that same problem, but it's good to be able to have those queues popping super fast. And with cross server for Outpost Rush, it's gonna
And
super.
what's great about that is once we have Outpost Rush working and tuned well, and we can apply that technology to other instance modes, which is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, we've been in the other end of some tough company meetings when moving, to a higher populated server. And one of the biggest things we always discussed was, well, are the OPR queues popping? And oftentimes they weren't. So it's good for those lower pop servers to have the opportunity to do those things.
Totally. There's some stuff that players do that we can anticipate as far as migration patterns, but there's a lot that we can't because you guys have minds of your own. You have different things that you're running after and you're going for. Some people are chasing PvP, some people are running from PvP. So like we consider all of this, but you guys are going to do what you're going to do. So we just have to figure out ways to react quickly, and this is going to give us more of that time to react by giving you the cross server for Outpost Rush, and as Scott said, other instance.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about access to the content you want to do as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So once we prove the technology out with the water through the pipes of Outpost Rush, you'll see other modes coming across, hopefully pretty quickly thereafter. And I'm really excited for this. Is something we've been working toward for a long time.
That's good.
Yeah. Another one we've been talking about for a while, we announced this last month, is, well, we didn't officially announce it, but we talked about it, was we're working on, yes, gear set management systems.
Yeah.
No, it's tough, even having 3 gear sets that you're managing. I know some people have like 12, 13. It's hard, and we understand that. And this is one we're taking a little slowly because we want to make sure that we make it much better and easy and something so you can really quickly switch, and it's got to feel good, and that's the most important thing.
Well, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So whenever we're talking about gear sets, is there also going to be a way to move items around in your inventory to organize them within the inventory now? Right now, things are like really stagnant, and you have to basically pull something out of your inventory. You can sort by time and weight, etc. But you kind of you have to pull something out of your inventory and put it back in to get things like in a row or in an order or something, however you want them. I'm really OCD, so whenever something mixes up my umbral shards in the top of my inventory, I got to have them all together. Is there going to be a way to move stuff around in there too?
Well, I wish I could say yes, but we haven't really talked about that a lot. I haven't seen a lot of people ask for it, so now it's something we'll look at. And I don't know if it's hard or easy, but it's something that I'll get on the list.
Everything's easy.
Yeah.
Until we start.
And it's funny because I always tease the team, hard and easy is the wrong measurement. It's time. How long does it take? That's the only measurement.
It can be something easy that takes us 6 months because we need iteration after iteration. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about is definitely going to have to be on the public test round for a little bit longer than we usually do, just because there's such different systems than we currently have in place. So we should be expecting those to be out sooner than normal.
Yeah.
So don't expect it to then be released very soon.
So tomorrow.
Not PTR.
You heard it here first. Gear sets tomorrow. Whenever this airs.
Oh my gosh, cut.
Yeah.
When we talked about the sandworm trial, we have a couple more expeditions that are being worked on, and these are featuring the Varangian Knights. So it's going to be a little different. Those will be coming in, next year, but we're very excited about those. We are making improvements to Group Finder. We've seen, it's helped a lot in getting people together, but we want to make it even more streamlined and make some improvements there. And the last thing we're working on is kind of a big deal. It's something I've wanted to get to for a long, long time. I think it's super important. I think it's going to be an end game amongst itself, which is transmog.
Yeah, let's go.
So if you find a cool cowboy hat, I'd hold on to that.
I got a nice little tea hat with purple feathers.
that's
and
adorable.
I knew it was coming. I hoped, I guess, that it was coming. So I'm ready, man. I'm ready to dress up for sure.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
So we'll have, like I said, we'll have more to talk about, but we did want to give the community an update. And this is what we're working. This is what we're actively working on. So these will be in the future. Again, I'm not going to pin down a time frame, but we're super excited.
Except for the ones that you said were in the
December.
winter. Those ones.
Pretty sure
Better
winter.
label. Spring, yeah.
I'm gonna hard commit to the winter convergence in winter.
Yeah.
Yes. And springtime.
Excellent.
Should be in
Great,
spring.
great, perfect.
Awesome. Those are very exciting. I'm super excited about a lot of those for sure. I think gear sets, transmog are going to be huge for the game. And then cross server, I think, is probably on the top of almost everyone's wish list. So that's going to be awesome.
Is there anything that you guys think that we've left off that's super important to your communities and the community at large?
Yeah, I think really territory control is one of the things I see my community harp on a lot because it's very hard to get into wars whenever if you're kind of more of a casual player, and I know wars are kind of more of an in-game hardcore activity that's supposed to be, you're supposed to work your way up towards it, but it feels really bad for someone who does play the game a lot and then they're gated out of that content by another player. It's not necessarily you have to reach these marks to be able to participate in it. It's like once I get the gear, once I get the items, and then this guy over here says I can't get into the war, that feels real bad. So that's one of the things that I hear a lot. So it's awesome to hear that you guys are working on that. That's probably one of the biggest ones. And then I think raids, like Red mentioned as well, is like a huge deal too. I think once more high-end, really tough PvE content comes in the game, people are gonna really enjoy that. Yeah.
Well, so people troll me about this all the time. I got one time. They told me on the PTR that there was a barber or an NPC named Barber, and so they convinced me that maybe barbershop or facial like character appearance changes were coming into the game. Is that
Maybe we can have hair.
anywhere? I mean, I do have hair in the game. I got cornrows.
We could get wigs, but no. I think barbershop's a really important feature. It's not something that we're actively working toward right now, but long term, I think the game it's going to have to happen at some point.
If there's anything else that the communities would like from us, the forums are the best place to get that to us. Our community managers are scouring that, getting the feedback to us. Anything that's like really exciting that folks think that we're missing. I know that we've given some non-committal answers, but we are bringing in all of that information and discussing it with the leadership team and the dev team and making sure that we are hitting on the things that are most important. So.
Or talk about it on New World to Go because we listen.
Yeah. You have to watch.
You gotta watch what I say.
yeah.
Just trying to give some shameless plugs.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah. All right, to kick things off, we have Katie. Katie, we're going to ask some questions that a lot of the community want to know is when Fresh Start servers are
You
coming.
said the word, Fresh Start servers. Yeah. So we have been working really hard to get Fresh Start Worlds put together. Those are going to be going live on November 2nd. We're going to have a steady stream of information so that people can look forward to and plan around the timing. It's not going to be like all the worlds open at the same time, kind of what we saw at launch. It's going to be a slow rollout of worlds. So you can plan for a time that works for you and hopefully avoid any long queues. But these Fresh Start Worlds, it's going to be a completely new experience because we have the revamped starting experience and all that good stuff. People can't transfer into these worlds, so there's no old money making it in. You have to earn everything that you make in the Fresh Start world. So super exciting.
It's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna be there for it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah, I think it's gonna be almost like a relaunch or something. There's gonna be a lot of people there playing. It's super exciting.
Yeah, there's definitely like folks that don't really, want to do a Fresh Start experience because they work so hard on their characters. But I mean, it's worth it to just hop on over, try the new experience, see what it was like on launch day if you missed it, because it's going to be a lot of, level 2 and 3ers hanging out on the beaches. Yeah, and then that's the only part that is the same, is that you land on the beach. The rest of it's totally changed, and if folks have been spending any time on the public test realm, they've seen that it's totally different.
And
So
amazing.
thank you, appreciate it. We took a lot of feedback to make that happen. So I remember the first time I hopped into the new tutorial and I saw the change in the withers or the lost that are in there, and they kind of have a withered like feel to them because there's like corruption running through their bodies like veins. I was like, nailed it,
Yeah,
so
it's incredible.
good.
Yeah, it is good.
It was
It's
really
very
cool.
good.
Yeah, and to celebrate the Fresh Start server, I'm designing a new creator campaign, very much akin to kind of a spiritual feel of Battle for New World, right? So it's going to go alongside the Fresh Start servers. Fresh Start servers, Fresh Start Worlds, which one are they?
They're fresh. I mean, they're servers.
All right,
but,
yeah.
but we call them Fresh Start Worlds because
Okay.
they'll have their own names and all that stuff. So it's just like you're joining this new world. So.
Awesome. So Fresh Start Worlds. This new campaign is called Return to Eternum, or I lovingly call it Return to Eternum. And we're going to bring groups of, you like that, right?
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Return to Eternum.
Nailed
Very
it.
good,
Very good. Yes.
Thank you.
very good,
Thank you.
very good.
I try to get a dad joke in there as much as I can.
Oh man.
So we're going to be bringing these teams of content creators together from around the world. We're going to have teams from North America, Europe, LATAM, and we're going to be putting them into their own private environment. And there'll be 3 captains per team. And so we'll have 4 teams. It's going to get complicated, so stay with me.
Right. I'm like, what do you
Each
do?
team is going to have their own world, so they're going to be trying to accomplish a series of objectives in that world. And as they think of them as bingo card lists of objectives. So Team 1 completes 6 of the 8 bingo card objectives. They are now done with that list, and they move on to the next list, which has a harder set of objectives. There are 4 sets of objectives, again, ranging from easiest to hardest. The really cool part is each one of these objective bingo card lists is tied to a specific Twitch drop. So all the teams are going to start with Twitch drop 1, which would be a cool item. The first team that completes that list of objectives and it flips to the next list of objectives, they then move on to the next Twitch drop, an even cooler item. So then the teams behind, kind of lights a fire under them. It's really about each of these teams trying to be the first team that gets to the next Twitch drop. And talking to Phil, we've got some awesome Twitch drops that we're going to be using for this event. And another really important piece that I think is kind of the cherry on top is, talking to a lot of these content creators, they might have fallen off after a couple months, in the beginning of New World. And a theme that they just kept saying over and over again is like, I still really like New World, I want to come back to New World, but I want that fresh start again. And so tying it to Fresh Start servers, what we're going to do with these different teams they're going to be experiencing their own Return to a Tournament experience with their communities and other creators they'll get to invite in. But then when Return to a Tournament is over, those servers become joinable as well. So as a viewer, I could be watching my favorite content creator and be like, that world that they're creating, the fun they're having in there, you'll eventually be able to join that world with them when Return to a Tournament is over. But along the Fresh Start worlds are happening alongside that.
Yeah, but you get like the insight into what that server looks like even before you join it, which is not something that we really offer. It's kind of like a,
Yeah, you get a window into these special
Of the
worlds that
immediate.
the creators are going to be kind of, maintaining and manipulating. And the creators themselves that are going to be involved are going to be inviting their communities in. They're going to be handing out keys and trying. So this comes out on the 24th, or should come out on the 24th, which is the date that we're going to drop a bunch of other information about Return to a Tournament. So go to newworld.com. There'll be a ton of extra info and details on the Twitch drops and which creators are involved.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
I
really
was going to ask
excited.
you what like when you first started talking, I was like, but how's this different from Battle for New World? Because we all watched that, but as you kept talking, I'm like, oh no, this is very different.
Yeah.
This is not the same.
We learned we learned a tremendous amount with Battle for New World, and I think that's only going to make Return to a Tournament even better. So I'm really stoked about it.
Yeah, very exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. Sounds like it's going to be an incredible event. It's going to bring a lot of players back, I think, for watching their favorite streamer, and it should be good. I'm excited, yeah.
Who's your favorite streamer, Greg? You want to share with us?
That's a pretty easy question to answer. man. What are you talking about?
This guy G Henniger, I think, or Greg H.
Great
Oh,
day.
yeah.
I've heard, yeah.
Solid streamer.
He's pretty legendary.
I'm not a fan personally, but
Dad jokes.
but
I am. I'm a huge fan. Gotcha. All right, so here we are with the two Daves, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about combat today, one of my favorite subjects in the game, and so I think we have some pretty tough questions that I hope we don't get punched in the face for asking. But first, before we start, we were talking a little bit earlier, and I just wanted to ask you, how hard is it to manage all these combat modes? It's something I talk about a lot, and it just seems so daunting to manage all of the different modes in the game.
It is very daunting, and we have a ton of different modes and different scale combat, right? We have small scale combat, we have large scale combat. All the weapons interact differently between all the different combat states, right? So it's a difficult thing. We try to keep on top of it. We try to stay and look at whatever the meta is for each of the modes, make sure something's not taking over. Let's say the rapier, just throwing it out there. Something like that doesn't start taking over in like one-on-one situations or things like that, and adjust from there. It is one of those things that we're just never, there's always gonna be something more to fix. There's never a perfect ending to it, and so we're gonna keep trying. Some of the things we are doing in our modes now, though, as you see in arenas, like we have a healing starts to degrade over time, right? So it's one of the things we're gonna start doing in our modes is actually making sure that we keep that balance a little more. We might be a little more heavy-handed with it by doing those type of things in the future. And, OPR, maybe we'll have some gear score scaling. Maybe we'll do things like that in the future. So there's definitely things we want to do to try to make sure that playing field becomes a little more balanced, and we might have to do some overarching rules on these modes now to try to curb it.
And it's sort of fun that it's, I know it's not good for you, but it's sort of fun that it's never done, right? Like that the meta changes, like when we did the perk rebalancing stuff, as we introduce new weapons, all this stuff keeps combat changing and fresh. And it makes his job hard because you've always got to redo the balance, but it makes it fun.
we talk about it a lot of time because the meta really does. You guys do a great job with keeping the meta fresh. It's been a lot of iterations of what's the most powerful build, or what's more frequently seen in like OPR or PvE and stuff like that. So that's one of the things that balance is never finished, but it is nice to always have a fresh restart on the meta, so to say. And you guys do a great job with that for sure.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about the nitty-gritty now that we got that out of the way. Let's talk about some of the weapons that are pain points for myself and a lot of other players in the game. And you mentioned the rapier. So the rapier right now is used on almost everyone's back bar, which I think is really part of what's contributing to what we see as BOPR right now in OPR. So I guess with the rapier, there's some nerfs coming in on the PTR or for the Brimstone update. But do you think that'll be enough? And do you like where combat is with the rapier, with all the escapability and the maneuverability? Is that where you want to see combat?
No, just to be very clear, escapability is just too much right now, and it's not. It was never meant to be for that. It was meant to be more of an aggressive weapon, but it is being rightfully so used right now to be defensive because it can be used that way. So I think we have a good amount of nerfs coming in for it. We hope that's enough. We don't want to nerf it into oblivion, obviously, and so we're right on the edge there. I think we're going to be in a good spot, but we'll definitely be watching and figuring that out as we comes out. But we do want to make sure that we want people to be able to run away. You don't want just a ball of death. Like you can't just have it when somebody sees combat, they're dead. There needs to be some option for them to be able to get away. But this one is just too far. It just went too far. It's too easy to get away. You can repost, stun everybody, and then just fletch out of there, right? Like it's indefensible, and what's worse about it is it's not fun, right? Like it's not fun to play against it. I try to chase them down. I wear heavy. It's impossible for me. It just feels impossible. I have to have a big group with me just to get one person down, and it's just not fun for the opponents either. So.
Oh man, I can't tell you how happy I am to hear you talk about that in that way. I may have raged just a few times with that weapon, but yeah, go ahead, Ren.
Yeah, so I think the next favorite companion to the rapier, other than the bow, is the musket. So a lot of players complain about it in PvP. Obviously, it is a very, I guess, polarizing weapon because it's probably the worst weapon in PvE to use as far as DPS goes. But in PvP, where you can scale it with the 2 stats, Dex, and then you have the perk Mortal Empowerment. You have people, playing Call of Duty on the mountains in OPR and headshotting people, and we're just, one of the things that I think a lot of people are interested in is how hard or difficult that is to balance of a weapon because of, It's basically if it doesn't do enough damage, it's useless type of thing, and where you're heading with the musket as far as balance goes.
I'll take this one. Yeah, I think musket is a tough one because, like you said, this is one of those where the width of the game makes it hard to balance. Because in PD, it's weak. Let's be honest. It's struggling. But in PvP, because of the hit scan nature, it's really strong. So we need to figure out a way to balance both of those, and that's going to take some time. We do have some changes we're testing for the musket that have a little bit of fall off damage over distance, and I think that'll help sort of the
Cutlass
OPR
Sword,
on a
which
rock
is supposed
situation.
to give you a little bit more
And then I
luck.
think
So let's
also
go ahead and
looking at the stamina damage it does
see
too,
what they're
so
going for.
there
Let's
can
go
be a
ahead.
counter with shields
So
also. So I think
down
combining those
here
two
to
changes, we're doing some
our
testing around it, and I
armadillo
think
meat.
it'll help it on
And
the
their buy
PvP
orders for
side, so it'll become
125.
more balanced.
Sell orders are currently
On
going
the PvE
for
side, we've
about
got more thinking to do. We've got to find a way to increase its damage in PvE without further exasperating the problem in PvP. So we're looking into that and just trying to make it a more fun weapon also.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So one of the other pain points for me, and I think a lot of other players also, is flamethrower for the Fire Staff right now. So Fire Staff overall, I feel like is pretty solid, but whenever you are fighting multiple flamethrowers at a time, that's whenever it becomes a problem. So if I'm dueling a flamethrower and they pull that thing out, you can always stun them out of there and you can counter it. But whenever like you're in arenas and you have this cheesy 3-stack with three flamethrowers, 3 ice gauntlets in there, and you are like a melee player, really the only way to counter that is to almost do the same thing, because you'll have a guy flamethrowing you from one side and then somebody flamethrowing you from the other. If you burn your cooldown on this guy, like shield bash this guy, this guy's just flamethrowing you, so then you turn your focus to him, but by the time you do that, this guy's already flamethrowing you because there's no cooldown on the weapon, on that ability.
Now,
Is there
let's go
any
ahead and look
changes
see
coming there?
here.
Absolutely,
I even
yeah,
got
it's a
5
definite
have
pain
2
point
points.
for
Let's
us
assume
too.
those look like
We
those
noticed
don't
that a lot.
factor
And so I think
into the money.
we're going to look at the mana consumption on it for sure. And
Why
make
this
sure
slot
that
is
it's
absolutely
actually
so good.
when you trigger it, you're going to know that you triggered it. Your mana bar is going to know that you triggered it, and then you're not going to be able to kind of infinitely
have full
go on
skinning
this
and I
anymore.
don't
So
have
I
the
think
song,
it's
which
one of those.
as well.
We wanted to do that to get people to play it.
Thing here is
Obviously,
don't
nobody
get
really using the
exposed to
flamethrower
it.
before.
You can grab a bow.
I'm the grandfather of this toxicity for sure.
So once we got people playing it, which is great, but now it's just gone a little too far. I think.
Get one
So
for the go.
we're gonna take that back a little bit.
Put
It's
a
a really
dot
fun
down
move
on
though.
it.
I really love that move, and I think it's fun to
We're
play
gonna
against.
skim
It's actually
some,
as a
and,
defender, I love the immediate counter you get, right? Like if you're thinking about it, like, and there's only one of them. Like again, it's fun. You just run up there and stun them. And you got your immediate counter to stop them from doing that. So I think there's a good counterplay to it, but it just goes too long. It shouldn't be that powerful.
Yeah, yep.
So this is kind of back to the rapier and the mobility escapability thing, is the armor balance and the dodge distance, the the weight of equipment and blocking. Blocking is something that really doesn't get used a lot. Do you guys have any plans in the future that will kind of help maybe bring people out of the light mobility meta and maybe into more of like a medium heavy armor set that maybe centered around blocking or something of that nature?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some changes for blocking coming. In the PTR, we already have done some changes. So we've reduced the amount of time after a block break. We've also increased the mobility while blocking. So those are 2 sort of quick changes that are already in PTR and testing. And there's more things coming. I think one of the things we're looking at is the stamina damage balance, making sure we're tuning that appropriately so it's not overdone or underdone. I think right now, it feels like you take too much stamina damage sometimes in blocking, so it makes it a little unsuccessful. Another thing we're looking at is how blocking works in group combat. Like, it's hard to balance, like in situations where like we get hit by a ton of attacks. How do we balance that while also making in sort of one-on-one situations? So we're definitely looking at ways to sort of improve the viability of blocking.
Yeah, that sounds good. I know that's a pain point for a lot of people. There's a lot of people in our company I know that always complain about not being able to block and people just dodging away all the time. So that's really good to hear. So to shift gears just a second here, the Heart Gem runes, those are coming into the game, and I think those are going to change combat pretty heavily. Are there plans to like implement? I know this may be a little early because we're just now getting them, but like horizontal progression to add more of those in combat, or even horizontal progression in terms of like adding additional skill trees to weapons, or like what's the thought process there going forward?
So this is our first sort of cut at some real strong horizontal progression. We did it with a new ability this time, and we're excited to see how it plays out first, right? Like how are people enjoying it? What is sort of the new strategies, what it opens up? And I think, this is, I think, a pattern that we'll be doing more often. I think a game like World with all the cool gear and the variety of modes works well with horizontal progression. So we'll continue to do. There's no sort of immediate plans or things we can announce yet. I think we're sort of let's get Heart Gems out there, see how people react to it, and then we'll decide from there.
Yeah, they're super cool. We're playing with them on the PTR, and I love it. They're really neat. I like them a lot. Yeah, good addition, I think.
Yeah, the rune glass gems with Heart Gem, I mean, those are really going to, I think, have a massive impact on the meta for sure. This is an interesting question, I think, from maybe our standpoint, but it's PvE oriented. It is the changes to the reduction, the damage reduction on enemies. I know a lot of people's DPS weapon decisions were made off of, what is an enemy weak to, what is it resistant to, and now with those removal or the removal of that system, we already kind of see like a hatchet. You have to use a hatchet to DPS. Like, do you guys have any fear or any announcements on maybe some changes that will help mitigate that? One weapon is king in PvE.
In general, we're removing the negative resistances, but we're keeping the bonuses, right? So the bonuses still are pretty strong, 20-ish% to 25. In our mind, that should be enough to make a decision. If a weapon, like the hatchet, is so strong that a 20% bonus isn't enough to get you off of it, that's more a problem with the hatchet than the system. And I think, we really like removing the sort of the negative resistance part for the starting part of the game, right? Like if you're just starting out and like you really like this weapon, and the MSQ is taking you against the loss, right? And it sucks when the main doesn't work there. So I think that's the main reason we wanted to remove the resistance side. And I think, our goal is to make the bonus side enough to create weapon diversity, because we don't want a world in which everyone's got hatchet for mutations, right? Like that's not what we want. So
yeah,
we'll be keeping a very close eye on that, making sure that happens.
Yeah, sounds good. I think everyone wants build diversity and not to be pigeonholed into a certain build. I know there's a lot of players who like to go in there and use their particular weapon, and if you're not using that weapon, then oftentimes it's hard to find a group. So it's good to hear the build diversity is coming in. So to shift back to PvP for just a second, I know we're kind of shifting gears all over the place here, but what is your ideal picture of PvP in well, let's just say like OPR, since that's probably the most popular game mode. Right now it's so range heavy. and before we've seen like unkillable healers and some other things happening in the game. What would be like your ideal meta? A mixture of all, or like some very heavy melee combat happening, or what is the ideal meta?
I definitely see a little bit of mixture of all. Obviously, we want everybody in there playing, having fun. I would like it to be a little more melee oriented than it is right now. I think it's just a little bit too ranged, and that's because of how incredibly powerful like the musket is, and some of these builds that let you get away with the rapier.
The rapier.
So I do want melee to feel really important, and this also goes back kind of back to blocking, right? Because currently, right, the blocking isn't effective. So as you're approaching as a melee, you get into a group fight, it's not a good thing, right? Like if you go to block, you're going to be block broken immediately, and that's a terrible state to get into. So I think it's trying to figure out how to get that to be a little more powerful so that people want to do that. Like, I think I really want melee to be more important in those fights. I play melee all the time in OPR. I'm just trying to get the feel for it and just see how can we get this to kind of get to that better position. But I love having snipers. I think it's great that somebody's sitting back there with a musket shooting people. Like that's fun. That's part of the game. I mean, I don't want anybody not to do that, right? So I think I love that diversity of what the roles are in the mode. So for me, it's just getting a little more viability to the melee, which will kind of, I think, push us to that. Percentages will be really nicely stacked with range, healing, melee, everything in between. So I think the goal is to kind of get to that point where you can feel viable as a sword and shield. Like I just want you to be able to go in as a sword and shield and feel great, not just do the leaping strike combo, right? Like it's more than that, right? Like I want you to be able to go in there and feel like you're leading the charge going in there. And I think that's something we're getting towards. We've been trying to tune towards it, but we still have a little ways to go. It's not by no means, like I said, never done.
Yeah, it's going to be always it's going to be a challenge to continuously improve and change. I think for sure. You got a tough job there for sure, without a doubt. Yeah.
Just to add on that real quick, I think I agree with Dave. Like, combined arms is what we want. We want people to come up with interesting compositions for their 20-person group. Another thing we might do in addition to combat balance that can help OPR is we'll also continuously look at how scoring works in the game rules to make sure that we're sort of incentivizing the type of behavior that makes for fun OPR matches, not just sort of like stat padding and kill padding that you sometimes see with some of these PR people.
Yeah. So what about arenas? We talked a little bit about OPR, et cetera. Are you happy with the state of where arenas are? I don't know how you'll ever solve the problem of cheese comps going in there and just dominating the arenas. Are you happy with the state of them right now?
No, I'm not. So I don't know what we said or not said right now. So
Just, are you happy? I think.
Are you happy?
no, it's very frustrating right now when you go against the three stacks, right? And it's just not a fun experience for any solo queuer at all. Don't do that. You're going to get stomped, and it's not fun. It's very the keyboard punching kind of aggression that comes out of that.
Do we have any changes in mind that might address that?
I think we have announced it. Okay, good. I didn't know we had or not. So we are going to have like a group. Basically, if you're a 3-person group, you're going to be matched up against other 3-person groups. So we're going to try to get that to happen there. And then if you're solo queue or 2 queue, you're going to go into a separate queue. So it should kind of get you away from it going against the 3 stacks, which will help that a little bit. We're also going to look into gear score scaling, so they get people a little closer. So it's not going to make everybody even, but it will get people closer in power level. So once you're in there, you'll go up to 600, no matter what gear score you're at. As you guys are already at 625, but for everybody else, you'll be going up to 600 to get a little closer. You'll still have a little advantage of 25 there for people that are above it. And so we're trying to get that a little more standardized, trying to get that a little closer, while still giving benefit to the people that have actually ground for their gear and did all these great things to get up to that level. So we hope that will start the change going, but definitely is not going to be the end all be all. And then once we see the results of how that's going, we're going to make more adjustments to it.
This is like maybe the final question we have, and it kind of piggybacks on his. Any plans for, we've got the group finder for PvE, and you're able to queue as like a tank, healer, DPS. Any plans for OPR arenas maybe, since we're doing the solo and group queues, to queue in as a role, maybe as a healer or damage, melee type stuff?
Unfortunately, no immediate plans. I think that's something we thought about, and I see value there, but it's not something that's going to be happening in the short term.
I think that's going to do it for this segment. We appreciate it, guys.
All right, well, this is a big topic of discussion in the community, territory control. So let's just start off with this. One of the complaints from the community is just the ability to participate in wars. Wars is like the in-game PvP experience. It is extremely influential in the game, owning territory and collecting gold and everything like that. So we're just, first off, just any like general sweeping changes that you guys can talk about in the next update.
Yeah, I think the biggest update that's coming in the Brimstone Sands release is the revenue sharing changes, right? So what this does is the way we create income stays the same. It's based on taxes and the activities, but what happens is all that gold goes into a kitty now, and it's distributed to companies based on certain tiers of percentages. So we have like tier 1 towns, which gets 12.5, and tier 2, 3, and 4, which get down to 5%. So this is a big change. I think the goal of the change is manifold. One is we hope it makes all territories valuable. Right now we have this world where like just Everfall and Windsward are very valuable. And like things like First Light, you're not going to make much money off that. This should make every town valuable. The other thing it does is we hope it creates like this sense of progression, right? Like small companies can fight over the tier 4 towns, still make a little bit of money, and hopefully then progress up the ladder into the higher tier towns. And then sort of the last big part of this that we really like is that income you get is modulated by your territory level. And what we like about this is it gives people a reason to upgrade your towns to max level. It makes those invasions and winning them more important, because when you go down a couple of points, you're going to be making less income. So that's the big change that's coming in with Brimstone Sands.
It's huge.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think that's going to solve some of the issues for sure with the influx of money going to certain companies. Are there any plans in the future ever to kind of distribute the money to factions in any way versus just companies? So the controlling company gets most of the money, but then some of the faction benefits as well?
No immediate plans. I mean, we already have the faction carts, which was our first sort of step at this, right? Like, so when you own that town, there's a cart that everyone in the faction can use. I'll be honest, they're not like super, like I don't go out of my way to get them, but if I pass by, I'll pick it up, right? It's some free resources. I think that's an avenue we can look at to boost further, and I think, giving some benefits to the faction we're aligned with, doing more of that.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. So I know one of the other things is like the war cooldown. I know that's something that's on the kind of on the PTR right now. If you join a company and try to leave a company, you get a message that pops up that tells you a little bit about the war cooldown mechanics. So can you explain how that's going to work in the future?
Yeah, just to be clear on that, it's in PTR for testing right now. It's not going to go out with Anniversary. It's going to go out a little bit later. But what it basically is when you leave a guild, you're going to go on a 3-day war cooldown, which means you can't join a war and you can't generate influence. And it's going to be really impactful because it's paired with company minimums for wars. Meaning it's different numbers. We still haven't quite settled on exactly the number. That's part of why we're testing and stuff. But more on the defensive side, when you're defending a territory, you're going to need, most of your army is going to need to be company members. So because of the war cooldown, we're hoping that this takes a major chunk out of the shell company problem, which is, a big part of what you're saying. So like it's when the 50 best players on a server are able to use shell companies to just kind of go everywhere and fight in every war, it severely limits the amount of war slots available to everybody else. So the goal here is to change the rules of the game so that it's more confined. So you have to be more strategic as a 50-person group and where you're going to hold, because you can't hold too many places.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. I think that should fix some of the problems we're seeing for sure.
Definitely. There's one more coming with that also, the war fatigue. So what we're looking at, this isn't, it's not going to happen with Brimstone at least, but in the future we're looking at sort of limiting the amount of wars a single person can do in a day. And again, the goal there, and we would do this on an account-wide basis, so like, because there's people have various altitude emerges. And the goal here is, again, to distribute, because war is fun. We want everyone doing it. We don't want that one small group of people determining on war, to give people more of a chance to participate in this fun activity.
It's awesome to hear. War fatigue is definitely one of those things that was discussed that could definitely make a huge difference, and it's glad to hear that you guys are working on that. One of the other awesome things about PvP is open world. I think the memories of Great Cleave and early on in the game, pushing territories and having that resistance of large groups of people was something that we'll always remember in New World. Do you guys have any adjustments coming that will potentially promote that Great Cleave open world experience that kind of we had all having fun in during the introduction to the PvP track?
Yeah, this is a big area of focus for us over the longer term. So to kind of sketch out what we're thinking 3 major things. First one being timing windows. Like that Great Cleave, Great Cleave was the place to be, so it drove everybody to one place to do open world PvP. So if you can kind of imagine a world where at any given time, only 2 territories are generating influence right now. So hopefully it will drive everybody to those zones. It kind of happens organically at times, like during peak times, like when there's an influence push happening, everybody swarms there. That's when there's the most fun. That's what right now. What we hope will happen is with these time windows, that'll just happen all the time. And then once that's in place, one of the really cool things about overworld PvP is the fort control points, which are every fort has a faction buff that it gives, but each of them also grants extra influence on PvP mission turn-in. So if you can imagine multiple control points with each territory, I didn't say a number, I just said multiple. One of the things that we're not sure about, but yes. So now you can start to wonder what different factions can be controlling these, and again, it's all within a window of time. So everybody's just one there fighter.
And might the number of forts you have control the multiplier you get for the faction?
Exactly. This multiplier might go very, very high, which would again hopefully address one of the problems with PvP missions and influence right now, which is that it can seem like it takes a very long time.
Yeah, that seems pretty interesting. I know one of the problems whenever you implement open world PvP systems like this, though, is oftentimes you'll have big, huge Zergs running around just dominating everything, which can take away from the experience a little bit. Is there any mechanics implementing or you're planning to implement to try to have some, not necessarily super small scale, but prevent these huge Zergs from just dominating that?
It's an area where, I think we're heading into uncharted territory. We're going to have to play test. We're going to have to feel things out. I know some things that we're talking about are lock windows where once a fort is claimed, it can lock. Dave, you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think the other thing is this timing window isn't going to be like an hour either, right? It's going to be, the main thing we want to avoid is the 2 a.m. pushes, right? As a company owner, it sort of sucks to have to defend those pushes. You can't do it. So I think the idea of the timing window is to give a broad enough time frame where it's not like a big Zerg 1 hour go there, but shallow enough to where you can't do those sorts of things. And the other part I like about it is it'll feel more like you can win as a defender, right? Right now it feels like I'm just going to lose eventually as a defender anyway, so why bother counter pushing too much? With this, if you have, let's say, a couple hours window, if you can defend in that, then you're safe until your next window opens up. And I think that'll be a nice feeling. So let's say we add multiple fort points. You've got the different locations for faction missions. So I think the goal is to have a couple different hotspots in the territory when that timing window is on, not just sort of one big ball.
Right. That'll be awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, those improvements are insane to hear about. The final thing we really have for you guys is practice wars. They've been kind of teased a little bit, but when can the community kind of expect that we can see these practice wars kind of coming in live?
This one's not on the roadmap right this second, but it is definitely something that we all really agree that we should have for many, many reasons. We want to give more content to more players. We want to give companies a chance to experience war and practice get their skills up in it.
Yeah, so it's something, like Dan said, we agree with that we want. It's just there's higher priorities at the moment, so it's not on our short-term list.
Yeah. I think that'll about do it. You have any more questions for this?
No.
Territory control?
Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Those changes are something to get excited about for sure, so we appreciate it. All right, well, next is our crafting segment with Phil and Tony. We appreciate you guys joining us. We got a lot to talk about for crafting.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, it's crazy to be here in the studio talking with you guys. I mean, as a first timer, I'm just excited to be here, Mr. Redbird, Mr. Brody.
Get my name right, man?
It's the nerves. It's the nerves.
We're glad to have you on the show today, man. Thank you for joining us here.
Flip the tables.
Yeah,
I love it.
So let's hop right in here. The first one we have is there's been a lot of adjustments in the way you gain experience in crafting, such as aptitude and everything like that. Are there anything we can can you comment on how the pacing is for crafting right now and where you're kind of stand there?
Sure. Yeah. I'll jump in first here. One of the big focuses that we've been working on over the past half a year, I would say, is trying to get that pacing smoothed out in your progression between all the gathering, then the refining, and then the crafting. So as you kind of go up those rungs, making sure that you kind of keep pace with all of those in mind, where and you're incentivized to go gather higher end resources, refine those into higher end materials, and then use those materials to build higher end crafts. They're not just like focusing solely on iron swords to 200, right? I think that was a big lesson that we had at launch and seeing how people were interacting with the system, and really something we've been working hard to improve. And so I feel really good about the way that kind of gathering and crafting now work with our latest release. Gathering and refining. And then crafting's feeling a lot better, and we've got a lot of ways to like choose up the experience and the time it takes you to get from 1 to 200. But I still think it could be improved a little bit though too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said. I think one of the big things that should help with that is going to be the changes for you get the double XP for the first time you craft something. Right? Because like right now when you go through and you craft a new level, it's like of this tier, how many of a specific thing do I need to craft? Well, I'm going to go make 140 ironwood swords, and that's it. But now that you get that double bump for all the individual crafts, at least you get some more variety in there. It should help you feel a little bit more fresh and give you those bigger, I think, bumps of progression, which would be really good.
Yeah, totally. And it just incentivizes you to it's almost like a little bit of a checklist to craft everything.
Yeah.
And at least we reward you now for going up. You hit that new rung. Oh, I can craft star metal weapons now. Okay, well, I'm gonna get double XP if I craft a sword and a hatchet and a bow.
As you go through all that.
Yeah, which is pretty nice. I think it's a feels bad moment a little bit whenever you are crafting just iron swords or
Yeah.
iron over and over again, and you don't really get a lot of benefit other than leveling up quickly.
Yeah, one of the things that we saw early on, right, was the whole how many tens of thousands of arrows do I make?
Yeah.
And it just
Ash stain arrows. We've had a few things where it was just
do
craft
this.
a million. That's not the experience we ever wanted, right?
I'm guilty of the stain. I took those opportunities for sure. So I think one of the other really big things about crafting is we have the introduction of scarabs coming with brimstone sands. We've seen timeless shards coming to the game recently as well. So all of these things are kind of lending themselves towards making crafting better items a little bit easier. So is that like getting a Abyss item in New World is pretty hard. It's elusive. So I think for me, I think getting that item is probably a good thing because it keeps you trying to chase that good item. But sometimes it is a little bit frustrating, a little bit too hard almost. So heading in those directions with like the timeless shard scarabs, is that something we see more of in the future and like a kind of an easier way to get those items?
Yeah, two areas I think we're really sensitive to right now, and we've heard a lot of community feedback on this as well, is generally like the cost it takes to actually craft one of these items to roll. Some people might refer to it as gambling, I don't know.
I mean, some people.
Who doesn't? But it's a fair assessment because they either cost you a lot of time or points to get them. And then you throw them in the pot at least to give you items. There's some games out there that might not give you anything. But that kind of leads to the second point. So cost is one vector that we're really sensitive of, and we want to be respectful to that time and that investment anyone puts in. And the other one is just more agency and control over that. And I don't know. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I think division, right? Like you go through, you level up, you get to 200, and then you're I'm gonna grab it. But if it feels like what you're after is just unobtainium, you just kind of stop and get it. And so timeless shards are kind of a first step, gold scarabs is another step. But it's a very, it's a thin line for us to walk because if you make it too easy, when everybody has everything, and if you make it too hard, now you're just completely disconnected and you don't want to involve in the system anymore, right? And so I think there will be ways for us to continue to give more agency, I guess if you will, because as long as it is required like the scarabs, for example, you take a look at what is the playtime, what are the activities people have to do. People are out there having fun, they're jumping, they're doing the thing, they're getting a reward to have more agency. That's awesome. And more ways we can figure out how to do that, I think that's good.
Yeah, the scarabs is something I'm looking forward to as a crafter and to improving my gambling habit. For
but
sure.
at least a 2 good perk item is still better than nothing, right? Like it's still you could have a good 2 perk item and you could either trade that for a good amount of money or it could be really useful in your gameplay. There's a lot of other ideas we have floating around there of how to actually add more. You asked can we see more of that in the future? I think I don't know if it's going to necessarily take the form of an item though versus more of a refinement to a system. But again, it's still a tightrope that we have to walk of making it the pursuit fun, but not just overly easy where everybody kind of has this. But definitely want players to feel like they're looking for better items versus just trying to find a single good item.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think actually on that point, right? There's BIS and there's almost BIS. And for a lot of people, almost BIS is good enough. And so there's still a market for that. And I think there's still a chase for that, right? A lot of people, of course, everybody wants BIS. But you find something that's really, really close that can hold you up for a while, that's still a huge market.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a big one for crafters. Do we have any plans? We got music. Yep. So now, any plans? Any additional crafting skills that are coming to New World in the future?
got ideas.
We could edit it out.
We have ideas, but I think one of my favorite parts about New World as a game in general is how good I think our trade skill production is. Getting lost in the open world, like it's literally fun to chop down a tree like in our game, which is hard to say for other games I play. And so we definitely want to continue to support that. Nothing specific to really say, but we are taking inspiration from other open world games and some of our favorite experiences we've had over the years as gamers ourselves, and like trying to figure out what does that mean in a tournament. It's a very elusive answer, but it's just I will say trade skill is something we're going to continue to support for a long time.
It's awesome. That future's bright for gatherers and testers. I like that.
I think so.
Good.
Or just players that want to do something else other than just kill monsters all day.
Yeah.
There's we'll have plenty of that for sure. But yeah, that other stuff we can do. I thought that was a cool reaction to our new game.
Yeah, people loved it.
I actually like, it's fun when I'm waiting for a chest run to start, or I'm in a holding pen waiting to get out for like in OPR or War, and someone's just kicking it, playing some music, and people are dance emoting all around.
I gotta say, when you're doing a portal run or a chest run and you're at a portal and someone off to the side just whips out the freaking upright base and just starts playing while everybody else is fighting, I laugh every time.
Listen,
Yeah,
they're exploiting donos from
They are.
people spamming the chest closing button.
They know what they're doing.
I hate to expose those people, but that's exactly, you know who you are.
Yeah, you know who you are.
The one thing I will say to that though, and I think you said it really, really well, is future trade skills. How does it wrap into the rest of the world? Music came online. I was like, oh yeah, music is cool. But then we start looking at it. Music is actually quite nice.
Yeah.
And so anytime that we add something else, how does it hit the rest of the ecosystem? There's a lot of levers. But what is the right way to integrate? And make the trade skill have a whole lot more than just like adding something that's kind of static.
That's something I think New World does a very good job at. Is all the trade skills are and gathering is probably some of the best. It is the best I've ever had in the mode. So one of the other things, there's a pain point for players that you can't really see what recipes you have at any given time. So so one of the questions that I have is that do you have any plans ever to kind of create a system that's almost like an achievement system, or like a separate menu, not necessarily where it's a crafting station, but like where you see your tabs for achievements, your bio, all that stuff. Maybe you have a recipes tab, and then within that screen you can see maybe like your your furnishing or your cooking or whatever, and have them listed and with check marks decide which ones you collected, etc. Just a way to keep up with it for players to be able to chase those items.
Yeah, as someone who likes that stuff as a player, I really like that idea. I think it's a cool idea. I will say we don't have plans to do it currently, but thank you.
Yeah.
And no, I think it's a conversation that Tony and I can really dig into outside of this and really figure that out. Like, okay, that's cool. There's a lot of value there, I think.
Yeah, I think because it ties into, there's a couple of issues that can be resolved there. One is what do I have, what don't I have? Two, if I want to cook a certain meal or whatever, what ingredients do I need to have? Right? There's friction in there trying to figure that out while you're out, in the wild farm or whatever you might be doing. So I think there's definitely some areas where that can be massaged. Right now, if you go into your trade skill screen and you click on, say, weaponsmithing, if you will, you just have that super long list on the right. There's just a lot I think that we can do within the screens we already have to just make that a lot more pleasing to interact with.
Awesome. That'd be great. Big addition to the game. One last question. You spoke a little bit about this earlier. Is depth of crafting? Is there anything we can expect that maybe expands upon the depth of the current trade skills that we have?
It's a good question. What I will say right now is that it's something we talk about a lot. It's conversations that come up a lot, and a couple different vectors kind of keep bubbling up to the surface, which is something I mentioned a little bit earlier, which was how can we give crafters better control over what they're crafting? That's a big thing that we talk about a lot. We're constantly examining ways we can do improvements to the current system. So it's not like necessarily new crafting, but it's just like optimizations to existing systems to make those better, to give crafters a little bit more stability in what they're crafting. On top of like what we're already doing with the scarabs and the timeless shards. And then the other topic is identity, which I'll sort of Tony to.
Yeah. So like one of the big things and a big talking point we constantly kind of circle back to is player identity. And when it comes to crafting, gathering, defining, crafting, all that whole ecosystem is such a big part of the world. But like, how can a player have more identity within it, right? What can they do to separate themselves from the crowd, if you will? And how can they, how can we give them more depth in the system? And so, when we speak to the future, whether or not it is, additional trade skills or, additional recipes, are there other ways that we can allow you to put in time to get rewards that are a bit more specific with what you have interest in? And so I think there's a lot there that we can work with, and I'll just say that I'm really excited for the future. I'll leave it at that.
That's great.
Awesome. Sounds like some pretty interesting stuff coming in for the crafters then. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. And more depth, more and more systems. It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. All right. Well, I think that actually does it this time. Yeah. So thank you guys. Thank you guys.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome here anytime.
Oh, appreciate it.
All right, so now we're here with Rob and Mike. Thank you guys for being here. We have a couple of questions for you today about Brimstone. So the first question we have on the docket is one that a lot of players want to know is, are we going to be able to fight the Sandworm in Sea and Brimstone?
Yes, eventually you're going to be able to face the Sandworm. We're thinking it's going to be an encounter for more than 5 players. Details are still yet to come, but keep your eyes open and ears peeled for upcoming news on some of the cool stuff we're going to do with Sandworm.
Awesome. And if you can, if you are able to defeat him, you'll learn some cool new stuff about him and like a lot of the backstory of the world that's related to where he comes from, like his origins, which are rooted in pretty ancient Eternum history.
Nice. Always great to learn more lore in the game. I know there's a lot of people who love the lore of Eternum, but getting more of it is always a good thing. So excited about that for sure.
Now, we've wandered around in Brimstone for a long time. The features inside of the zone are second to none. The jump puzzles, all of the chess mechanics and everything like that. Is that something we can kind of expect moving forward with future zones?
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, I mean, the standards in Brimstone are certainly, you know, push the experience overall. Like whether you're exploring or doing quests or fighting, you know, different groups of AI. And I would say that that's the standard that we're going to have going forward. You know, certainly for the quest, I can speak to that. Like I can say, you know, the quest dynamics we use, the variety of puzzles, the way the story flows, particularly with the story around Imhotep, really is the standard that we look at when we're doing this kind of quest.
Yeah, and so the gimmicks that we put in there, dynamic events, things that make you look at the world differently or interact with it differently. There's so many tools that are available to you as a player, and so we want to explore, like, you know, thematically what fits the best for whatever zone that we're working on at the time, whether it, you know, meshes really well with the biomes or the characters and the overall story. Just like how do those integrate into, you know, those POIs and that whole experience.
Yeah, it's been awesome to swim through Brimstone and TTR. It's been quite the experience. Unlike any other zone in the game so far, it's just really, really good. The jump puzzles and all the intricacies of the zone is really, really interesting. A lot of fun to run through, no doubt. So we also have, like, Brimstone and the new player experience. The quests have just been completely redone. Everything is like so much more streamlined. The story is a lot better. The lore is really starting to come to life now. Are those all things we can expect to happen, like, moving forward in the future? Is that something you guys are leaning more heavily into? Or are those types of mechanics in the game, like just very much story-driven type of quests, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, we're very focused on creating memorable quests that make an impression, and you get to interact with multiple times, rather than just like everywhere you go, there's some new character, some sort of, you know, laundry list task. Like actually having characters who are traveling with the player, their stories are unfolding as you go, your relationship with them is evolving, and hopefully, you know, it keeps everything, you know, more interesting as you go through these things. And of course, as we just mentioned, you know, the quest types, like the variety and the activities that you do, that's something that we're going to continue. I mean, I would say it's even get better because we're looking at, like, we're taking all the lessons that we learned from Brimstone Sands and using those, we're improving the tools, and getting a better grip on, like, you know, how dense to place quests and characters and stuff like that for the best experience.
Yeah. That's good to hear. I think story building and building relationships with players and the character and the lore in the game is like a recipe to keep people interested in New World, like long term, as far as the story development and everything like that goes.
Yeah, I mean, and I would add just that, you know, we're going to be introducing a lot more characters who are historically or mythically based. Like, so names you recognize, you know, you meet Imhotep and a few others who I won't say a name right now, you know, yet, but yeah, you'll be meeting a lot of more mythological figures, characters from, well, in RSC you meet, when you fight Sir Gawain, we'll have other characters from the Arthurian mythos that come into the game. And yeah, a lot more recognizable names that I think players will see, and every one of them has a unique Eternum twist. You know, like, how did they get here? What's the real story behind the myths that you've read, and how that relates with the
And
world.
continue to build upon all the great visuals and landmarks and places to explore, and tying, like, all those thematic themes that you get in the story and the lore to these physical places that you like, oh, I wonder what's over that ridgeline, or what's behind that alcove tree. Always having this thing kind of leading you forward and just presenting a beautiful world, but now just expanding that world. That's what I love about Brimstone itself. It's like now we're introducing this brand new desert experience, and we want to continue pushing that forward with, you know, zones in the future.
Yeah, sounds amazing. I think New World is sitting prime for all kinds of expansion, for all types of different stories, because of the way that the land is kind of laid out in this mysterious feel around Eternum, that you can almost bring in anything you want or any culture you want and add it to the game. And I think that's pretty exciting for players moving forward, because there's no telling what we're going to see, and I'm here for it. I'm ready to see what's out there next for sure.
Yeah, the final thing I think we have for you guys is the zone size. I mean, Brimstone is almost 3 times as large as any zone that we've seen on the map. It's the first zone that's been added since live. Is this what we should expect moving forward as far as zone size? Is Brimstone?
Brimstone is an exception to the rule in the sense that it's a desert, and the desert had to be vast. So it had to be very big to support a lot of the stories and themes that we were pushing for. So I would say it's towards the extreme large end of what our zones would be, and I think they're typically would be more the size of like an Ebon scale or even a Reekwater. So more nominal in size, but that's because we want to tell, you know, more stories, have more unique things that happen in the world. So not saying never, it just really depends. What are the story influences that are driving us? What are the experiences that players need to go on that journey? And that'll kind of dictate what size things really need to be.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about, and one of the things that I think there's a high likelihood you'll see, are you know, a big themed area that's perhaps multiple zones. So like you can see Brimstone, we could have broken it up into 3 different zones based on the size. And we may have some areas like that in the game coming up as we expand into more, you know, world lore, mythology type stuff.
Yeah, sounds awesome. I get kind of excited about the story for sure. I like to get really immersed and really drawn in, and I think the new player experience is part of that. That's really going to help draw players in. And I'm just excited to see what's out there and what's to come, man. So it should be great.
Yeah, because it's going to influence the NPCs that you interact with, the enemy types that are there, the cool new weapons and gear that you're going to get.
Yeah.
So, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, we're excited about what's coming. It's going to be good.
Yeah, us too. All right, well, I think that about does it. Ready?
Well, I gotta, you know, my community would be very upset with me if I didn't publicly apologize to Mike for.
Oh yeah, you do need to apologize. You owe him an apology.
What did we do?
It was in a. I may have teabbagged you during.
It wasn't
the
may have. It definitely happened.
Let me thank you for doing that.
It wasn't aggressive. There was some bribery.
I'm pretty sure Lane is to blame.
Scott?
Oh yeah, he instigated. As far as I know, at least that's what community team. Correct me if I'm wrong. It wasn't Lane.
Let's blame it on Scott.
It was totally
All right, let's go. Scott Lane.
Scott's been
actually his fault, not mine.
I can scoot back if you guys need to settle this.
No, we've
I'm cool.
resolved the beef.
No beef here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
The culprit is somewhere else.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that'll do it for this segment. Thank you, guys. It's awesome.
All right, well, that does it for the October dev video. Scott, again, we want to thank you for having us out. It's been a long time dream of ours to be out in the studio, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just echoing the sentiment the Red has here. It's been incredible. Thank you for having us out. It's been a super fun day, and we just appreciate you guys a lot.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for all the hard questions today. And just to finish it off, thanks for all the support again. Like, we've been listening to you for so long. It's fun to finally meet in person, and can't be happier having you. So thanks. Awesome.
The October developer update for New World is here, and well, 1, it's early, and 2, it's in a different format, and 3, there's no actual roadmap. That sounds like it's coming next month or even in December, but there's some very interesting things in it. So it's actually hosted by Twitch streamers and the people who run New World Fans, BDLG and Redbird. In a way, it's sort of like them interviewing the developers. But let's talk about what's inside. Before we do, big shout out to my YouTube members. If you want to support the channel, that's the best way to do so. So as I said, the first thing is we didn't actually have a roadmap. Even though that was sort of said at the end of the last one that the roadmap would be coming in October, here they're sort of talking about what might be in that roadmap rather than the roadmap itself. One of the things that they spoke about, which I'm a bit confused about, it sounds like they're going to have this sort of like hybrid dungeon, which is effectively going to be a mix between, I think, Starstone and Amrine. I'm not sure what the hell that is. Let's just wait and see what that's going to look like. They said they're going to take the best parts out of both. Maybe it's because they don't want those expeditions to be pure mutated on their own. Who knows? Along with that, though, there is going to be a new level of mutation. They also were hinting quite heavily throughout this about raids. Now, the first raid is probably going to be the sandworm, basically the desert worm. So in my eyes, that looks like it's going to be like a one boss raid, a little bit like a trial, or I think in Final Fantasy they have the same kind of thing. Hopefully at some point we'll get like proper dungeon diving raids, but for now that sounds like it's coming. It'll be on the roadmap, I think, and probably will release sometime next year. It'll be like in the year. It won't be in the expansion, if there is an expansion. That's sort of just my own personal theory. But yeah, that sort of sounds like it's being worked on and is coming. They didn't say how many players, just more than 5. There were a couple of like things where they spoke quite vaguely. For example, territory control systems, they say we're getting change, and I don't think they just mean like the war cooldowns. It sounded like they have some bigger plans for that, but obviously they didn't actually elaborate on what that was. They did say though that it would probably come before March, but alas, I don't know if they're referring to like some sort of completely change to territory control, or if they're talking about the changes to the PvP influence. It's hard to say. But for the PvP influence, we did get an insight to what they're planning there. So we know that they took out 2 of the PvP missions, and we sort of now know what they're planning to replace it with. They want to have a system where some zones are actually sort of like hotspots at specific times. Along with that, it sounds like instead of just having 1 fort per region, there's actually going to be multiple. Whether or not they're forts or just sort of little camps that you can control, basically they just call them control points. We don't know, obviously, but that sounds really interesting. They just said multiple, they didn't say how many, and the idea is the more you have of them, the quicker you will gain influence in that zone. So if you have all of the faction control points, then you'll be able to hand in quests and like get it very quickly. That sounds really good, and I do really like that idea. Another thing that was mentioned, but again no real details, in spring there will be a new event that will be called Springtime Bloom. Something that they did spend a bit of time talking about is Cross Realm. Now I got excited because I was like, oh, we're having Cross Realm for everything. No, we're actually just going to start with Cross Realm for Outpost Rush, and then they're going to expand that system. No ETA was given on that one. Again, I think this is actually going to be like when they just have that technology ready. Gear sets were once again confirmed. They were talking about how they really want to get it right. One of the hosts, I'm not sure which one, asked about being able to move gear in your inventory, and they were like, no, we've never thought about that. And I was like, what? It's crazy to me that in the UI it's just so hard to actually manage what you have beyond just saying like, oh, I want to save this gear set. I want to be able to store items in places that I want to in the order that I want to, and you literally can't do that in New World. Again, transmog was confirmed. I had seen this in sort of like little forum posts and stuff like that, but here they pretty much said that that was coming. Again, no ETA, unfortunately. Presumably, the things that they are talking about here will be on the roadmap, and they'll actually tell us when. Along with the hybrid expedition, they did talk about how there will be more expeditions. I think they may have said 2. One of them will be the Varangian Knights. Obviously, these are the kind of things that they do quite well. We'll probably see these at least once every like 3-4 months, something like that. A big one, which was sort of disappointing to hear, but it's nice to know that they're like thinking about it, is that there is going to be no barbershop. You cannot change your appearance yet. It's not even being worked on by the sound of things, but it's in the to-do list, which is nice that they're going to do it. But yeah, I sort of expected that to be relatively soon. In fact, it's not. One interesting thing about fresh servers is that they're not just going to launch all of the fresh servers at one specific time. They're going to roll them out, and it sounds like we may actually get dates and times beforehand. Now I don't know if they're going to roll them out over multiple days or if it's going to be the same day but at multiple times. Either way, the idea being there is that you can sort of say, okay, well, I'm actually in work that day, I'm going to come home at 5 and then I'll start playing on this server that starts at 6. That sounds really good. There's also some really big content creator thing that's happening. Now, as far as I know, this is all happening on Twitch. They haven't contacted me about any YouTube stuff, but that's fine, I'm not complaining. But this Return to Eternum, it sounds quite weird. It's basically a lot of content creators all on their own server, inviting their own communities, and they're basically competing against each other, and then at some point you'll be able to go over to that server just as sort of like a casual player or somebody who's been playing on a different server. Look, there was supposedly going to be more details on the website. I haven't seen them. If you're interested in that, just keep checking the website. I'm not going to post about it because I don't know who's interested, but the viewers of those channels will be, if that makes sense. Then they talk about PvP and basically balance, which generally I don't normally get involved in balance, but here I actually think it's quite important. Musket, they basically soft confirmed that there's going to be fall off damage. So basically the further you are away from an enemy, the less damage you're going to do. They appreciate that the musket's actually quite hard to balance because it's terrible in PvE, but really good in PvP because you're playing like 300 meters away. They also said that they actually wanted a counter to the musket to be shields, which sounds interesting. I'm happy for that. They spoke about the rapier and how it's already been nerfed. They didn't like how escapable it is. They don't want that to just be the weapon that everybody's using to get away. And the flamethrower is going to get a minor nerf, somehow going to actually utilize your mana a little bit more. Now, overall, they were speaking about the balance between like melee and ranged in Outpost Rush, and they concluded that they wanted more melee in Outpost Rush, which is sort of like music to my ears in theory because I'm a melee player. However, I personally think that most of the ranged is fine. It's really the range from like 300 meters that is a problem with snipers and stuff like that. And when it comes to snipers, he actually said he loves having snipers in the game, which blew my mind a little bit because I think having snipers like 300 meters away with very little counterplay is terrible. But fair enough. I want musket users to have fun. I just don't think the fun should be at the expense of somebody else. Well, they should be at the expense of somebody else dying, but it shouldn't be the expense of somebody else's fun. But it is what it is. They did say that when it comes to Outpost Rush specifically, that they may actually change the way that it's scored. Presumably, they don't want people to just be scoring a lot of points being 300 meters away. I keep saying 300 meters away. I actually don't really know what the cap on is on ranged. I'm presuming it has one, but I've never tested it. But I'm guessing what they mean with Outpost Rush is that they want people to be closer to the point, so you actually have to engage in some way. They said that there would be no role queuing in PvP anytime soon. Personally, I really want to see that for PvP Arena. Don't think it really makes sense for Outpost Rush. They said that there would be more changes to blocking, basically buffing blocking, okay? More heart runes were effectively strongly hinted at, but not confirmed. The stuff with the war cooldown, even though it was on the PTR, it has now been confirmed that it is going to be coming soon. They just didn't put it in the 1-year anniversary patch. And that is basically if you leave a company, you get a 3-day war cooldown. You'll probably need 35 minimum from one company to participate. And it sounds like war fatigue will be a thing, maybe 1 or 2 per day, something like that. Nice to know that that's actually coming because they put it in and then didn't sort of speak about it again. Practice wars, on the other hand, I'm sort of happy to hear them say this. They're still coming, but it's not a priority for them, which I sort of understand, and I think that makes sense. And then we move on to crafting. Now, crafting is a bit of a sore point for me. I really hate Campbell crafting. I don't think it has any place in gaming, and just full stop. And I really don't like it in New World. Now, they did say that they want crafting to basically have more agency. And what I take that to mean is basically they want it to be less random, but probably at the cost of more materials. A little bit like the Golden Scarab, right? That is what they were talking about. And they said that they literally might change some of the systems to accompany that, to actually make that work. Because one of the devs said something that I've been thinking about. If you just gave everybody best in slot items from crafting, nobody else would do any of the other content. It wouldn't really make any sense. It's a very strange balance. And personally, I think in the long term, it needs a complete gear rework, but it's nice to see that they're planning something. A future addition to trade skills was talked about, but no indication there. I think they're suggesting more professions, maybe something like archaeology or something like that. No details though. They did say that they might want you to be able to sort of specialize in a profession. Now, they didn't put it in that word. They actually said like, we want the crafters and professions to have like more of an identity. So if you're a player, you could be an armorer. They didn't actually say that. I'm sort of like paraphrasing them, but that's sort of what it sounded like to me. Now, an interesting note is that more zones have been confirmed very softly because they were talking about like what they expect in future zones. Brimstone Sands, for example, seems to be an exception when it comes to the size of the zone. They wanted it to feel like a barren wasteland desert kind of thing, but obviously not be devoid of content. And I really think they nailed it. However, they said that they expect future zones to be about the size of Evansville, which makes sense, that's perfectly fine. But yeah, no roadmap. I was convinced a roadmap was coming because it sort of sounded like that when Scott said it at the end of the last one. Therefore, I made like a prediction video because we were talking about it on stream. I also expected this to come on like Wednesday or Thursday. No, maybe it's because Fresh Start's coming next week and they wanted to just get people in this like Return to Returnum stuff. But yeah, very confusing timing. I would normally have streamed it, but we had real like no indication that this was happening. However, that's everything that's included in it. I would really like to start seeing timescales because there's a lot of things on this list which we sort of know are coming, but we don't really know when. It would be nice to actually put dates on it, and I suspect that's what we're going to get in the roadmap. Let me know your thoughts. Are you happy, sad, angry? Do let me know. Again, big shout out to my YouTube members. If you want to support the channel, best way to do so. What you should definitely do though is have the most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye. It's quite obvious to me now, New World has insane potential and could become one of the best MMOs on the market. Now I'm saying the word potential because I'm not saying that the game is by any means perfect.
Hey everyone, it's Graphic back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about this elite zone. It's Heliopolis, and it's one of the best zones in the game right now. A lot of people are farming it for many different reasons, but as you see here, there's tons of bosses that spawn. Mobs everywhere. You're going to get insane territory standing, but not only that, some of the best in-game items and weapons available to us. So I'm going to show you guys a few of the bosses, where to find them, and what they're going to drop that you should be looking for. These are best in slot items for some of these weapons, and I think a lot of people are going to continue to farm these for weeks to come. If you guys go up to the north side of Heliopolis, or the very, very top of Heliopolis, you're going to find a huge Zerg, most likely continuing to farm 4 or 5 bosses. So that's exactly what's happening here. As you see the big cat spawn, this is one of the best in the game to farm because it drops a very, very good ring, as well as some other stuff as well. We'll talk about those here, like I said, in just a minute. But this is a great spot to be in if you guys are interested in getting to this spot. Heliopolis is in Brimstone in the very middle. You're going to want to collect all of these chests daily as well, as they give you great item drops as well. But here's another boss to continue to look at. It's called Nequizza of the Shadow. Of course, I'm going to spell a lot of these, or say a lot of these, or pronounce a lot of these very, very incorrectly because they are insanely hard to pronounce, in my opinion. But you can see the weaknesses here. So the weaknesses being 20% more to slash damage, or sorry, strike damage, 30% more to lightning damage, and then 15% more to void damage. If you really want to go for their weaknesses, you definitely can do so. It also shows the zones, so Brimstone Sands, Valley of the Gods, and of course Heliopolis. You can see the red dot there on the map as well, about exactly where it's going to be. It drops Weaver of Wars, as well as, this is just one of the named items, it also drops another one, but this one has some pretty cool stuff about it, with the Keen plus the Plague crits. It's kind of unique, but it's not going to be a best in slot quite yet. But we have Heart of Nequizza, and this one's a pretty cool one. It has crippling, leeching, and void damage. Again, not going to be the best in slot probably for a lot of us, but it's not a bad ring when it comes to named legendaries. So pretty cool that you can get those 2 named legendaries up here. What else is there up here? Well, the next boss that we're going to talk about is going to be the Bathakit of the Cudgel. This is a guy that usually stands on the side by a chest, guarding it pretty much, and you'll actually grab him, pull him up the stairs by hitting him with a bow or hitting him with a fire staff or any kind of ranged attack. He'll run up there and you guys will just basically zerg him. This is obviously in the zone Brimstone Sands, Valley of the Gods, and Heliopolis. Again, you can see some of the weaknesses yet again going to be that 20% strike damage, lightning damage, and I believe it was void damage. So pretty cool stuff there. We have the Warrior's Energy, which is going to give you 24 strength, refreshing toast, nimble, and evasive. So not too good, honestly, but it's a named legendary, so you might as well go for it. We have the very, very solid Ancient Bane Cudgel, though. This is going to be 29 strength, Ancient Bane, thwarting strikes, and sundering shockwave. Depending on what you like to run with your hammer in these ancient dungeons, this could be one of the best really Ancient Bane hammers out there. When you can just go and farm it like this, it's going to be one of the best ways to get it too. So Monticle of the Shield is next in line. Like I said, 20% more strike damage, 30% more lightning damage, and 15% more void damage. So this is going to be another one to farm as well. And some of the cool stuff that you actually get from this one is going to be the Greaves of Monticle. It's going to give you 24 strength, and then Elemental Aversion, Freedom, and Corrupted Ward. So it's not going to be crazy, crazy good, but if you are looking for Corrupted Ward pants, it might be an option for you. So next up, we have Kindred Shu Magabal. Magabao Gao. I don't know how to say this one. Like I said, all of these pronounced unbelievably hard for me, or I would love to hear them pronounced in general, just to kind of see what they come up with when they say these things. But we have Threefold Storm Gore, which is a spear, 29 dex, chain lightning, enfeebling skewer, and keenly empowered. Not a bad kind of thing to start with. Not a bad spear to start with. We have Heart of Magabal, and this is one that everybody is hunting for. This is best in slot for a lot of people. 24 strength, hardy, keen awareness, and of course, that slash damage. You're going to deal 4.8% more slash damage. It's massive for slash damage users and strength users. This is going to be, like I said, something that tons of people are going to be hunting for, and that's why most of these people are up there. We also have Heka of the Crossroads. This is going to be a little bit different of a spawn. Make sure to look at the video here. It's going to spawn much, much lower than every other boss we talked about so far. But the reason I'm mentioning this today is because it has regular pants in the role. So if you get the drop regular pants, which I have, it's very, very strong. It has best in slot perks, so make sure to hunt that one down. We also have Heart of Heka, which is a very, very solid secondary ring to look for as well, with slash damage, leeching, and so much more. So we have the Thunder Intanius Autonym. This guy is a little bit special. He spawns up here where we're at right now. However, you have to summon him by having all the glyphs. If you're with a big Zerg like this, though, you're not going to have to worry about summoning him yourself. I'm sure they will on that cooldown. So make sure to take advantage, because there's a lot of named legendaries here coming across the screen that you're going to be able to see. He drops all of these. The World Encircler, 29 focus, blessed, keenly fortified, and refreshing move. Fairly solid, if you ask me. We have Sundrop. This gives you intelligence, focus, which is 47% mana regen, but nothing too crazy there when it comes to that weapon. But Eye of Ra is much better. It's going to give you Fortify Sacred Ground, Lost Bane, and it's going to kind of give you that idea of maybe using it in a Lost Dungeon. We also have Bolt of Flame, which has Refreshing Pillar of Fire, Refreshing, and Keen Speed. Of course, with the Intelligence, not a bad item there to use as well. Going into the actual list of everything you can find, there's tons of legendaries across the board for these bosses. So that's something you guys should know. You aren't always going to get a named legendary drop, but you can get other named, or not named, but you can get other legendary drops as well as named legendary drops from these bosses. It's not just these specifics that we went over today, but these are the most common, most reasonable drops you're going to get throughout running these bosses. But these are bosses that I and many of my company have continued to run. We've gotten the ring, we've gotten the regular pants, we've gotten all the best in slot gear from these areas. However, we have not gotten all of the pre-bis. So there's some smaller pieces of gear that are not that great, but you could actually utilize them in certain scenarios. Those are things that we are probably going to continue to hunt for, because honestly, it's nice to have pieces of gear that work in different scenarios, and there's a lot of them out there in this area of Heliopolis. So this is with Brimstone Sands. Hopefully you guys liked today's video. I want to continue to stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/iGarvGuy, and show you guys some of these areas live. So if you haven't already, make sure to follow me there. But this is one of the guides that I kind of wanted to come out with so that you guys would actually know where people are getting best in slot gear without paying a fortune to get them. People are either crafting it with all the legendary mats that cost so much to craft, or even golden scarabs. But why do that when you can go farm something for a half hour or an hour and spend no gold, but actually gain gold? Because remember, you're going to be able to get drops like the glyph, or these glyphs, that I talked about in the last video that make you a ton of money. You're going to be able to get so many different great things as well, like, just purple drops. Commonly, I get purple drops that are good. So here, let's see what this one is. This one shows you Constitution Strength, Resilient, Physical Aversion. It's not bad for somebody just starting out looking for some starter piece. There's good gear that drops, not just legendary names. So if you are new to the game, or if you're a fresh level 60, you unlock Brimstone, you're able to get to Heliopolis, take advantage of this zone. That's basically what I want to say today in this video. Heliopolis, take advantage of the big Zergs up here farming these bosses. It's going to speed you up quite a bit when it comes to territory standing. When it comes to the best in slot perks and gear, you're going to find them a lot up here. And if you guys want, there is a song that can be played that gives you territory standing bonus, and it's actually really, really good. As you can see here, that boss just gave me 192 territory standing. You get a ton of different legendary resources as well, as you can see there in the bottom left. So thank you guys again for tuning in. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn notifications on. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Hey everyone, it's Graphic back with another video, and today I'm going to tell you guys how to get from 500 gear score all the way up to 600 gear score in less than a week. It's actually possible, and I've seen many people do it. I want to tell you how you can actually do this and very, very effectively do this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the recruitment channel on your server. You're going to be able to see people talking about X Imp Train or X Train, XWT, depending on if they call it a world tour or a train. It's going to be perfectly fine. You're just going to want to type in X and whatever everyone else is typing in so that you get an invite to that train. And that's going to basically walk you through all of the level 60 areas that can boost your gear score quite a bit by the time they run through every single area. They typically run through the Eppen Scale Reach area, Imperial Palace. They come up here, they do Scorched Mines, they do Mertgard. They also come over here and they do a couple different ways. They go Eternal Pools, and then sometimes they even go down here and do the Sirens. I had to think about that one for a second. For some reason, I kind of lost my train of thought. But those are going to be some of the main areas they go to. Sometimes they can mix it up and go more places or less places. And you also have Malevolence in that rotation as well. So those are going to be most of the elite areas that they go to. And it's definitely a great way to bump your expertise by opening those chests, by getting sometimes loot from the actual boss kills themselves. But mostly the chests are going to be what bump your expertise up past that 600. Or, sorry, not past that 600. But past that 500 gear score so that it slowly overall goes up. So the one tip and trick as well for the gypsum orbs that are going to be guaranteed boosts to your gear score, that is right here. So Emerald Gypsum is one of them. This one's from doing a level of trade skill aptitude. So I did some stone cutting. I made 8 rune stones, and I went from 200 0 to 200 and then 1 aptitude level. So you just need 1 aptitude level. After that 200 trade skill, or sorry, crafting skill is at what it is. You just get 1 aptitude level and you'll get an emerald. But I want to talk a little bit about the gypsum itself and what you guys should be spending on before 600. So you'll see here I get my emerald gypsum. It turns into a gypsum orb. And then I have the option of picking any of these options for the gypsum cast. So the first thing you should always do, in my opinion, you should always go for the earring, the ring, and the amulet, because these are very, very slow gear score increases compared to gear. You'll get these to 600 very, very quickly in comparison to your weapons and your jewelry. So definitely get your jewelry and your weapons first. If you only have, 5 gypsum orbs that day, that's perfectly fine. Use them in weapons and jewelry because those are going to be the slow processes of getting those up instead of your gear, because gear is going to be a common drop in chests, so you're going to get a lot of bumps during the world tours or the trains that people are running on your server. So that's just kind of a little tip and trick, but I want to talk about every single way you can get expertise, and really the gypsum orbs are the best way, right? So you can automatically get gypsum orbs every single day by doing a couple things. First, we had that aptitude level. Second, we have Outpost Rush. Third, we have 3v3 arenas. And then we have the Sapphire coming from the defeat final boss of Laz, Genesis, Tempest, or Barnacles. Then we have Obsidian Gypsum. This one's coming from defeating level 60 plus open world named bosses. If you're really lucky, you're going to get this in your world tour or to the train if you can get kill credit, so definitely try to get a part of the group. We have Topaz as well. Defeat level 55 plus creatures while using Topaz Gypsum Attunement, and you guys can craft these. I'll show you actually right here. You can craft them with the Soul Worm Tongue. So go to your any tier 5 tent and then have 10 Soul Worm tongues on you, and you'll be able to craft this potion that, like I said, you'll have to defeat level 55 plus creatures while using the Topaz Gypsum Attunement, and sometimes you'll get the drop, sometimes you won't. But you can have a daily limit of 2, so you can get 2 gypsum a day from that, but you can only craft 1 potion a day of the Topaz Gypsum Attunement. So make sure to craft those every single day. That's going to be a daily that you're going to want to add to your rotation if you are trying to get from 500 to 600 very, very quickly. So another thing we have is complete an arena. So completing an arena is definitely something a lot of people miss out on every single day because it is a little bit tricky to get a group for this. So you'll still need to come down to, there's a couple different places. You can go to Sirens, or you can go to the Spriggan, or any of those different arenas. They're PvE arenas that a lot of people don't really mess with because the rewards aren't too great and they're kind of more of a joke content, but it's a very fast gypsum orb, so definitely do them if you want to. We have complete corrupted portals as well, so you need 7 for 1 gypsum. This one, a lot of people don't do as well, but it's very, very quick. Definitely if you're doing a Merc Guard run and all the portals are up. Right now they're not, obviously, but you just do 7 portals, and you'll get 7 pieces of an orb, basically, and then at that point you'll get 1 gypsum orb. We also have the diamonds, so find these from farming any node, getting a hidden stash. I typically go over to these young trees and just start hacking away. You'll pretty much always get a hidden stash within the first 2 or 3 trees. So let's go over here to where it's a little bit more common, where you'll find many more trees. And, you know, mature trees aren't going to really make it any better. Typically, I just go for the young trees, but we do have ourselves a mature tree right here. So let's see if that gives me one so I can show you. It does. So you can get 3 of these a day. You can see it gives you a bunch of different moats, right? But the biggest thing is it gives you a lot of coins and diamond gypsum as well. And the diamond gypsum is going to be huge. You're going to need 3 of them to create 1 gypsum orb. And these are all going to boost your expertise, like I said, every single time. It's an automatic upgrade, which is just massive. And that's one of the best systems they've come out with, just so people don't have crazy, terrible RNG like the start of the game when I was grinding from, I think it was like 550 to 580, and it was just so unlucky. I wasn't getting any good drops. I wasn't able to bump my expertise up. But you can see 80 gold per time, and then this one, 185 gold from this hidden stash. So you want to do it even if you don't need gypsum orbs for anything, or you don't even want gypsum orbs, just because that gold is so fast and so good. But there is other methods of bumping your expertise, and that is purchasing using faction tokens. So I'm going to go to the faction vendor here and kind of show you. But on the way, there's also going to be another way to get gypsum orbs, and that's through the Barnacles dungeon down here. Let me see if I can get to it. There's a repeatable quest at Barnacles and Black Powder. That'll get you gypsum orbs. And then there's also a repeatable quest here at the Tempest Heart that will get you gypsum orbs every single time as well. So those are repeatable quests. I believe you can do them only 2 times each, but still, that's a lot of extra gypsum if you want to go for them. So the faction tokens guy, let's check this out. So I just recently switched, so I don't have the reputation right now to upgrade to the highest tier and buy them myself, which is unfortunate. But you can see, you just go to the bottom tier of your faction rep, and you'll have gypsum orbs here at the bottom. So you can see the price of them being pretty low, actually. Definitely because you're going to be able to do, 3 daily missions every single day. And by the way, if you're looking for PvP missions, Shattered Mountain's probably my favorite. If you're looking for PvE missions, Brightwood is probably my favorite there. But you just select, these PvP missions. You can see that you're going to get about 250 gold based on just these 2. So let's just add another, 120, 130. You're going to get about 380 gold based on just your 3 faction missions of the day if they're PvP missions in Shattered Mountain. You're also going to get a ton of tokens where you'll be able to have extra tokens even after buying those 2 gypsum orbs every single day. So there's a lot of ways to bump your expertise up, and that's why I said 500 to 600 can actually take just a week. If you're taking advantage of every single gypsum orb way of getting those gypsum orbs, and then also doing the world tours or the trains, you're going to be able to bump it up very, very quickly. And another thing to kind of note as well is there are infused orb types. So the amount needed of infused orbs I will have listed on the screen and the cost of each, but you can actually go over here to the casts and you can see that there is something called infused orbs. You can cast these and it just works the same as any kind of gypsum orb. You just craft the gypsum orb and then it looks like this one right here, and you'll be able to go in and bump your expertise up for free. So it's just a really, really cool system that they added. I'm very happy about it. I hope a lot of people like you guys are going to benefit from it. Let's say you guys have, 30 minutes to do as much as you possibly can. In 30 minutes, you can actually get probably 4 gypsum orbs at the very least per day. So first I do the hidden stashes, right? You cut some trees down. That probably takes 2-3 minutes, to be honest. And then let's say we do the arenas. 2 or 3v3 arenas takes not long at all. If you win both, you're good to go. But if you have to do 3 or 4 arenas, still not very long. And then you can even sneak in faction missions, or if you have saved up tokens, you'll just buy your 2 gypsum orbs a day. So those are really, really quick ways to quickly get that gypsum orb every single day and level up your expertise. But those are just really, like I said, quick tips and tricks on getting 500 to 600 within 1 week. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn notifications on. I'll see you guys all in the next one.
Hey guys, Parfax here, and today I'm bringing you the 10 things I wish I knew before starting New World. All right, let's get started. All right, so we're here in New World, and I'm going to help you guys out by giving you the 10 things that I wish I knew when starting New World. This is going to be helpful for new players, it's going to be helpful for returning players, and possibly could be helpful to even players that have been playing from the start. Now, let me know in the comment section down below where I went wrong, what did I miss. There's a lot of things I could have put here. I could probably have done 50 different things, but we picked 10 things. Some stuff that are pretty, well, standard and everybody knows, or at least if you have played the game for a while. And some things I think are going to be a little controversial, which I don't mean to get people's feathers ruffled up. I mean, speaking of feathers, I mean, wow, feathers are starting to get really expensive. But I just wanted to help some players out and give you a few things that maybe you haven't thought of. Okay, so first and foremost, and we're right in front of the smelter, and you probably could have guessed what it is. And it is that gathering and refining are extremely important. I know if you are a player that's been playing since launch, you're like, Parfax, this is dumb. I know this already. But if you're a returning player, or if you are brand new, this is going to be something that you really need to focus on, even while leveling. So there are a thing called daily materials, and there is Asmodeum, Phoenix Weave, Runic Leather, Rune Stones, and a Glittering Ebony. Now, these are craftable every day, and you can craft 10 of them. You can proc extras, but that is just if you have gear, if you have the, the fort buff, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's essential that you do a lot of these every day. The big three that you want to make sure you do every day is Asmodeum, Phoenix Weave, and Runic Leather. Those are the smelter. It has at the loom, which is your cloth making, and then at the tannery, which is your leather working. Now, sometimes, especially right now, stone working can be good with the rune stones, but honestly, they are so terribly expensive right now that you have to proc a few extra for it to even be worth it, because everything is so expensive right now. But you want to make sure you get it up there so that you can at least do them. Now, when it comes to woodworking, I don't even have mine maxed out, as you can see here. I'm at 155 because it's almost never been profitable to actually do the Glittering Ebony. Now it can be decent. The mats are pretty decent, and I probably should get it up there. But honestly, I just buy it. But I do have, okay, I have like 300,000 in materials that I've been buying. But I do have, okay, I have like 300,000 in materials that I've been buying. But I have a decent amount of money, so I just will buy the ebony if I get there. I'm gonna eventually get it to 200 just to say I have it to 200. I'm gonna get everything there, but it's very important to get these done because you can only craft 10 of these a day. It's very important that you do this every day. If I don't plan on playing the game, but I still have access to my account, I will get on and just do this every day. It's like the only daily I think you have to do. There's not really many dailies in New World, but the dailies that are very important are to do these. So make sure you're getting on and doing these. And when it comes to gathering, it can be very expensive to buy all the materials. Let's look just for the runestone, which is pretty crazy. So, voidstone, obsidian voidstone. I need 50 of these. Okay, here we go. Just to make my runestones, it'll be 6,300 of just obsidian voidstone. Now, this is the most extreme example because this is the thing that is super expensive right now, but it is pretty pricey to actually craft these every day. So it's good to be able to get out there and gather. Now, having said that, it's also a great way to make money. You can do any form of gathering out there and make money currently. Some things are a little bit harder to get to, like if you want to do right now, you want to do mining, which is by far the most profitable. Ori and Lodestone are pretty compact, or not pretty compact, but they're pretty, farmed. There's pretty much somebody at every single node all the time. So it's really hard to get your hands on it, but you can do lower level stuff. And the more that you level these up, all the way up to 200, you actually get bonuses for it. So you'll get more material, you will mine faster, etc. So make sure you get both of these leveled up as fast as possible. Next is going to be something that I don't think a lot of people think of, and that is make sure that you pick one zone and call it your home. If you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about the territory standing. So what territory standing is it gives you benefits for being in a specific zone. You can see here we have a decrease on trading tax, a decrease on your property tax. We have a gathering speed increase. We have a station, which is like your crafting stations, speed decrease. We get extra storage. We earn more faction reputation while in that city. We can own houses, and we can get more territory gain. Now, right here, we're not really worried about the territory gain and faction tokens. If you want to do this type of thing, then I would do it particularly in Reekwater, especially the faction tokens, because it's got some pretty big token gain, or maybe up in Brightwood. Those are probably the two areas to do it that are the best. But when it comes to everything else, I like to have one zone to call home. Windsor to Everfall are where typically people do it, but I really like Monarch, especially next patch when we get the castle. And you see here, it's pretty close here. I'm at 68 and 61. And Monarch used to be really low for me, but I started doing all of my cooking there, and it really leveled it up pretty quickly. So you want to make sure you do all your refining and all of your crafting in an area that you want to call home. So you want to get those taxes up. And there gets to be a certain point where you don't really need to do it. Once you get into the 60s, you do get a benefit for going higher, especially the storage. The storage is one of the big things. But honestly, you don't need it that high. You do need to get your towns to 30 before you can buy the biggest house as of right now. So I suggest getting most places to 30. I know I'm really bad down here. You see, I never go to First Light, Weavers, Restless, Morningdale that much. But I really need to at least get Reekwater and Cutlass up one more level so that I can get to 30. So if I want to buy a house down there, I can. I had a house in Cutlass for a while, but you want to make sure you level it up because you want to just get the decrease in taxes and everything like that. So do all your crafting refining in one area until you get it, I would say, at least to 60, and you can have a nice, good base location. People don't jack up the taxes too much, and if they do, just go somewhere else. You're going to lose a little bit of money, but you lose way more money doing it that way. All right, next thing I want to talk about is your weight. No, I'm not talking about IRL. I'm talking about in-game. Now, when it comes to weight, I've actually had a lot of new players and some older players really get a little bit confused on the weight system. So we're going to go over it right here. So there are 3 different equip loads is what they call them here. We have light, medium, and heavy. You can see here on the screen the benefits. Essentially, if you're in light, your stamina costs 50, consumes 50 stamina. You deal 20% extra damage, and you get 30% extra healing. In medium, your dodges consume 40 stamina, and you have a base stamina pool of 100, so that gives you right off the bat an extra dodge. And crowd control debuffs you do last 10% longer, and you deal 10% more bonus damage. And then while in heavy, your dodges go back to consuming 50 stamina, and your block stability is increased by 15%. And then the crowd control debuffs you apply last 20% longer, and you have negative 30 healing. So if you're a heavy healer, you're going to heal for 30% less. Now, the one thing they don't really state on here very well is there actually weight. So in order, you can see here on your bar to the left, that 13, if you hit 13 weight, you are now in medium. And once you hit 23 weight, you are in heavy. So you want to get to 12.9, which it's not possible. 12.7 is the best you can do. And then you want to get to 22.9 like we are right here. Now, to get there, there's a couple different ways. So we're first going to talk about light. So let's go ahead and take the shield off. Let's take all this gear off. So the standard light equip load, actually we could put that back on, is a medium chest piece and then light everything else. So let's go ahead and put on all my light pieces if we can find them. We have light, 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 and light. So you see here we're at 12.7. We can't get to 12.9. Now there is another way to do light, and that would be a light chest piece with medium legs, and then one piece of medium between helm, gloves, and boots. But that gets to 12.6, and you will have a little bit less defenses if you go that way. Now, when it comes to your pieces of gear, you have your chest piece, which is going to give you the most, the most armor, and it's going to weigh the most. You have the second best piece or the second highest armor value in your legs. And then your boots, your gloves, and your helm all weigh and give the exact same amount of resistances. So you can swap these 3 pieces out, but these 2 are different. Now, when it comes to medium, well, first of all, let's talk about shield as well. If I put this, put a shield on, boom, I go into medium. What you have to do is you have to take off your medium chest piece and you have to put a light here. So the only way to be in light with a sword and shield is to have a round shield and to go a full set of light. Now, when it comes to medium, there's 2 different setups. You have the what I call the traditional setup, which is going to be light legs, and then a heavy piece, a heavy chest, we have lights. We need medium and medium. So this is the standard setup. So you have 1 heavy chest, you have light legs, and then 2 other pieces of medium. You can swap these out. So you can see here, we can put on a medium helm and put on a heavy pair of boots, and we get to the same exact weight. This is the standard build set for medium, but there is another setup that could be more beneficial. So instead of doing this, we can do heavy chest, heavy legs, and then we can do 1 piece medium and 2 piece light. So let's put on, where's my light boots? Right there. So in this way, if you're trying to swap between light and medium, you can possibly have 2 different pieces of gear. The reason why this is beneficial is because your light legs, typically you want shirking energy on them. I know I don't have them here, but we do have a pair here. And shirking energy only works if you are in a light equip load. So if you do have a pair of shirking energy legs, you might as well just do this setup over the light leg setup. But if you're like me and maybe you have a decent pair of light legs that don't have it, maybe you have like resilient shirking fort and refreshing on them, then I like it the other way where you put the light leg. So honestly, it's up to you. There's no difference. Now, if you want to put on a shield, I suggest a round shield. I don't ever suggest anybody to do a kite shield. I think kite shield, it's a kite shield in all medium is your equip load. But if you want to do the round shield, this is your setup. What are we missing? Oh, we're missing my gloves. Okay, so you can run on your small pieces, 2 pieces of heavy, and then you have light legs, and then a medium chest, and another piece of medium. So this will put you at 22.9 with the round shield, and this is what I use. This is pretty standard. This is, I shouldn't say standard. Honestly, I didn't even know what I needed to do, and I bought these boots for my sword and shield build, and I was like, man, I gotta find a way to put them in there. And turns out, was perfect. So yeah, so this is kind of your, what I consider to be the standard medium shield build. If you go round shield, there's not that many people that run medium shield builds, but if you're gonna run it, this is what it is. And then if you're gonna go heavy, it is just slap on a full set of heavy, be as tanky boy as possible, and run it that way. Next, we're gonna talk about something that I didn't learn for a very long time, and it is gemming your gear. Now, I have tier 5s in pretty much everything. I just haven't used this piece of gear, which is the reason why there's no gem in it. But every piece of gear should have a gem slot. And there are some times where you're not going to have it, depending on if you're like got a purple with 3 perks on it. But you want to make sure you are putting gems in your gear. Now, when you gem your gear, it's all about what you're doing. If you're doing mainly PvE, then honestly, I'm going to probably slap as many onyxes or malachites in there as possible, or not malachites, diamonds in there as possible, because most mobs in this game do not do elemental damage. You don't even start running into elemental damage in dungeons, and realistically, until you get to mutators. And once you get to mutators, you know, you want to just gear for those, you know, you want to put gems in your gear for whatever mutation that you're doing. But it's just best to put more physical gems in there. Now, you don't have to put these tier 5 gems because they can be pretty expensive. You can go to the marketplace and I can't remember. Oh, it's brilliant. And let's just look at onyxes are sometimes still kind of expensive. Yeah, at 184, I probably wouldn't do that. But we can go down here to, we can do cut brilliant diamonds, and they're 69 a piece. And these are going to give you 1.5% physical and 0.5% elemental damage absorption. These are pretty dirt cheap. You only need 10 of them. So that's not a ton of coin. If you want to put a gear in, well, a piece in every one of your gear, but you're not going to really put it in your weapons, so you'll really need 8. But make sure you're putting gems in your gear because it just provides so much tankiness. I went for so long without putting gems in my gear because I was like, it's too expensive.